Question from the Owlian. Owlboy has a really powerful, intricate story. What was the process of developing it from the initial idea into a full-blown plot?
This is a very long-winded question. So we're going to try to sort of do the Cliff Notes version.
Yeah.
But to sort of summarize, early on I had a kind of a specific idea of where Owlboy was going and sort of what the roots of it was. I mentioned this a couple of times, but the original idea was trying to find a concept that worked with the limitations that we had, which was we were developing for the Xbox 360 Xbox Live Arcade system using XNA, and we wanted something that could do sprites in chunks and assets rather than tile work. And the idea very quickly started developing into like floating islands and that sort of thing. And the idea of Otis being a mute came from the idea of other people not being able to speak the same language as you because they were so separated. So there were a lot of elements there about traversing to other places. How does language work? How does flying work if you're owls? Are there people there? That sort of thing. And then there was this element of what if you had a object or a relic, if you will, that is beyond your capability of understanding, but you give it to someone that does not understand it in any way, shape, or form. What would they do with it? And how would that change the course of the world? And then from there, it started to develop into this idea of what is the difference between having a relationship with your friends that can then strengthen you along your journey and help you make better decisions, as opposed to having to take care of all of these things alone. So there's all these small elements of how do you treat knowledge? How do you deal with your problems by yourself? What will the ultimate outcome be of all of these elements clashing together? So there were all these small elements there that could build into an interesting story. The thing is, then you start developing it.
Yeah. From my point of view, all of the stuff that you had in your head wasn't really on paper.
Yeah.
So when we, started writing story for Owlboy, when I got onboarded, and when Henrik, your brother, got onboarded, we had a lot of our own elements that kind of ended up weaved into the story as well. So the story of Owlboy developed as our own story developed, and that's how it ended up the way that it did. The dream sequence in the beginning of the game, we added that one because we wanted to start the game kind of differently from just waking up in your own bed like all the other games do. We kind of wanted to have like a pre-intro and set the tone for the rest of the game. We wanted to immediately break the illusion that this is a cozy, colorful Mario Zelda type game.
Yeah, part of the idea behind that is we wanted to tell a story where you can discuss difficult elements, even regardless of what the age of the viewer is supposed to be. But you can't just throw that in there. You can't just be like, and now here's a horrifying thing that we didn't prepare you for. Okay, go. You have to set the stage that, okay, it might be that you're going to have to deal with some difficult things. So we start you off with that, and then we go into the more like pleasant aspects of the game. So you're like, okay, so it can be both.
Yeah. And something that we discussed early on was that when we were kids ourselves, we were exposed to, like 90s shows and stuff that would challenge our minds a little bit. And we were thinking that even if kids play Owlboy and it's got these like little dark themes and kids are perfectly capable of handling that type of stuff.
Part of the challenge with making a game like this is that whenever you're handling difficult subjects, there's inevitably going to be someone that, oh, you didn't do it right, or this is bad, or you shouldn't show bad things because bad things are bad things and therefore it should never be viewed. So it was difficult tightrope to walk, just to find that balance in there of happy and sad and difficult. But I think we struck a pretty good balance because, like you mentioned, a lot of these elements were inspired by us as we were developing the games at the time.
I think the biggest change happened when we decided to, destroy Advent. Because that was the point where we collectively were at our lowest point, and we felt like just our worlds were getting destroyed. And so we were thinking, why don't we put that in the game? Why don't we destroy the beacon of hope in the game?
Yeah, and it's also, this was very tough for us as well, because Advent had all this potential. If you think about it in terms of an RPG, Advent is when you get to like the big town, and then you get to see all the sights, and all the important characters get introduced, and all the stuff starts picking up.
You had so many activities planned out. You were supposed to be able to help like build buildings, cook soup.
Cook soup, you're supposed to go to the theater, there was like shops and everything. And a lot of it was actually made, but then we realized none of this makes any sense.
No.
And
it's just time wasting, basically.
And that was very tough to get rid of that as an element, just so it would improve the game. And I think sort of part of that hurt, along with the stuff that was happening at the time, really helped like elevate the story to where it needed to be. And just to cap off that question, it is kind of cathartic that at the end of the game, we sort of get to the point that I had initially written the story for, where the relics have come into full play. You have these elements of you're not sure what's happening, you're not certain of where your allegiances are these things being misused, but it's propped up with all of our development and our personal stories that we've added to the game as it is. And I have mentioned this previous years, but this story would not have been as good had it not been for all the other things that sort of built towards that moment. Because you could have ended up with something that was a very standard, here's a villain, but they're a little bit conflicted kind of a thing. And there was so much nuance that was brought in by everything that was added by the team, and just all of the hurt that we'd been going through, but all of the positives that we ended up adding to the story as we went.
Yeah.
By the way, and I feel like I should mention this, if you or someone else haven't had the opportunity to play Owlboy yet, the game is 75% off on Switch right now. It'll last all the way out until November 15th, so you have a lot of time.
Here's the question from RetroFox. Will there ever be a sequel in the future for Owlboy? Love you guys, played the game many times, donuts to everyone. And fun fact, he's our current champion in Savanta Cent remixes as well.
Well, if you're looking back on this video in 60 years from now, at least you'll have that documented.
Yes.
Current champion! So we do get this question a lot, where people are curious about what's going to happen in the future for Owlboy, and if we have any plans. We certainly have plans. There have been multiple different approaches that we might look into how we would do either a sequel to Owlboy or expanding on the story somehow. Unfortunately, like every year, can't talk about it out loud because that would kind of spoil the idea. But I suppose what we can say is that we've certainly been discussing it, and we've had quite a few ideas about how we might approach something like that.
Yeah.